The year was 1933, and it was filled with wondrous moments in music history. Singer-songwriter and pianist Nina Simone, saxophonist and composer Wayne Shorter, and the Grammy Award-winning producer, composer, and trumpeter Quincy Jones had just been born. Cab Calloway had sold over 1 million copies of his single Minnie the Moocher, while Ginger Rogers made We're in the Money a massive hit, and a quirky young dancer from St. Louis, Missouri had Charlestoned her way into the hearts of legions of fans all the way to gay Paris. And on December 11th, Raymond Thompson Jackson was born in Providence, Rhode Island, to Raymond T. Jackson Sr. and Beulah Boyd Jackson.
Well, my mother and father were both professionally beauticians. My mother was one who started a beauty shop when she first came to Rhode Island from Virginia. She met my father and had him trained, sent him to New York to study beauty culture, and they both joined together to form a beauty shop in Providence, which was named after my mother, Beulah Boyd Beauty Parlor. It actually started when I was 4 or 5 years old. And at that time, my parents had a piano in the living room, and they had their beauty parlor in the front of the house. And I would practice, and their customers would hear me practicing, and my parents would hear me playing, and they said, "Oh, he has a musical touch." So the musical touch led to the fact that I began taking piano lessons from one of their customers, one of my parents' customers, who lived just down the street. So every week I would go with a 50-cent piece in my hand and pay 50 cents for a lesson.
While much of America was enduring the sting of the Jim Crow South, the young prodigy had earned the support of Black and white communities alike. In an era where race still determined just how far a young Black boy's dream could soar, the people of Providence did whatever they needed to do to ensure the success of their prodigal son.
Providence was south of Boston, Massachusetts. Boston was perhaps a great hub for culture. Many of the aspiring musicians, the great choirs, the soloists, the sopranos, basses, and all the musicians went to Boston. They went to Boston to study. They went to the New England Conservatory of Music. They perhaps went to the Boston Conservatory of Music. They studied with many of the great teachers of that era. Classical music at that time was considered to be in vogue for not only white people, but they were emulated as well by blacks as well. Blacks felt that if they were going to be cultured people, quote unquote cultured people, then they had to perhaps aspire in the same way that the white community had. So black communities began to think in terms of, oh, let's have more classical music in the churches. The choir began to sing more cantatas. They knew more about Handel and Mendelssohn and Bach, and the great anthem was sung. So the whole musical spectrum was so important to the black community, even though there were only a few perhaps who really engaged themselves in it. They nevertheless appreciated it and supported it. Perhaps I came along at the right time, and perhaps it was because I did have a special talent that was recognized by not only the black community, but also by the white community.
Raymond had only begun to take the world by storm, with critically acclaimed performances in London, Stockholm, Munich, Vienna, Geneva, and Greece. Critics called him the romantic pianist for his inspiring renditions of Chopin and Brahms. But with all of the international awards he had received, Raymond Jackson would become perhaps best known for celebrating the works of another intriguing breed of classical composers. During his studies at the Juilliard Conservatory of Music, Raymond stumbled upon the innovative works of Black classical composers, and New York City was filled with a growing community of new writers like Hall Johnson, Robert Nathaniel Dett, and Howard Swanson.
Every composer brings his or her own ethnic background into play. You know, it's not that you just end up composing and you end up being another composer. You're bringing your personal experiences to what you're doing. And what is a Black composer doing? He's bringing his experiences from his background, from the areas in which he lived, from the music that is coming out of churches, for example, or out of the folk elements of his experiences. He's bringing music that has to do with jazz and blues, things that were current at that time or emerging at that time. So the Polonaise, of course, was one of the great musical forms of the Romantic period. And Chopin certainly made great capital out of Polonaise. For example, he would the great heroic Polonaise in A flat. So it had a particular distinctive rhythmic pattern where everything was directed to the second beat, and you'd have that drum beat going on in there. And you would have the scales that would be going around the melody. So what did Hall Johnson do? He did the same thing, but he incorporated some blues characteristics. And the blues characteristics where he would perhaps take a note and bend it. Okay, well, let's not just walk like a European, let's sort of saunter through.
Critics will remember Dr. Raymond Jackson as the romantic pianist. Students will fondly remember him as an accomplished professor, lecturer, and mentor. And academia will celebrate his beloved repertoire by Black classical composers. But how does Dr. Raymond Jackson want to be remembered?
We have to realize that music is a divine art. It is a divine quality. And for those who want to use the term God, as I do, music is a God-given gift. I feel that I have been given a God-given gift, and the music that I feel is a part of my being is something that I would want to, it has not only enriched me, but I would want to see that it enriches those that hear my music.